Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session on diversity and inclusion. We're really excited to have this conversation with you. I'm Jyoti Balani. I am founder and managing director of FreshRiver.ai. We are a conversational AI consultancy. We do strategy and delivery work for Fortune 100 clients. And with me, I've got Divya Velanki. Divya, welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Jyoti. It's good to be here. Hey, everyone. I'm Divya Velanki. I'm basically from India, but currently I'm based out of Florida, where I'm pursuing my master's with the University of Florida. And I'm also working with Jyoti on her conversational AI framework. Prior to this, I was a professional in the software industry for around 7 years, specializing in enterprise architecture, middleware integrations, and analytics. I also led a couple of programs in the DEI space. And as a strong supporter of having more women in tech, I associate myself with a couple of organizations in that, and being one of them being an advisor for Women in Voice. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's amazing. The work and the portfolio you've got, I think it's incredible. So we're going to have a little bit of a different conversation, right? Because I know DE&I is a huge topic. Everybody says, and I see this in some places as like a checkbox, but I think there's more underneath now, given the fact that you and I both are in the field.
Yep.
We've worked, on the ground, and it's different when you see that, right? We were just talking earlier. I think we've been fortunate, but I think it comes to bear that when we work with anybody across the gender spectrum, culture spectrum, it's really about solving problems together, right? So let's talk a little bit about what's the big picture, what's the state of affair in the world of coding when it comes to diversity, and when I mean diversity, the whole spectrum of the human race. What are you saying?
Well, I think the best example of this would be the pandemic. The pandemic has impacted each and every one of our lives. Before, I've always been a person who prefers to have colleagues around me working in that office kind of space, because I used to believe, okay, if you need to get things done, the best way to do is, hey, you know what, I need to get this code deployed. You go to your DevOps team, you just ask them for the help, and voila, it's done. But that completely took a 360-degree turn with the pandemic, and the technology adoption has increased geometrically, and it's going to stay there forever, right? So that ultimately means you need more innovation, you need more work to be done, be it in the software or any other space, and we need individuals the developers coming together to do that, to make our life more efficient.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of books and talks, right? Software is eating the world, which is absolutely true. I think coding is more critical than ever. It sits in the heart of everything.
Yep.
And there's a very tiny fraction of the world's population. I think it's something like 0.003%, which is a little scary, because if you think about a tiny minority, one, trying to represent everybody worldwide as, we build these different systems for society and business at large, but also the pressure on them, we know mental health and burnout is very, very real.
Yep.
So what are we really talking about when we say, what are we asking folks that are already in the developer community? Let's talk through that first. What's the first thing? Earlier we were talking about outcomes. Why is it even important? Developers just want to get their work done. They're very, very much into give me the problem and I'll go solve it. Why should they care when it comes to outcomes of their work?
I think the first thing that I could think about is, as a developer, you are part of a community, right? And for you to get these things done, no matter how simple they are, you work with people. Now, those people, they might be from different regions. They might have a completely different profile than you, and collaboration is the key. It could be as simple as you writing an email or using a Slack or Zoom to connect, right? And for I'll just give you one example, right? I mean, I was a part of a climate change summer school just a couple of weeks back, and we had the cohort we had were each from different geographies, each were from a different time zone. And we were a team of four, wherein, and each of us again from a different time zone, and we had to work on a project within a span of 1 week, ideate and do all of that stuff. Initially I was very skeptical and scared, to be honest, because climate change is something that was quite new to me. I'm not in that area. Machine learning, yes, I have done things with that, but climate change was completely new to me. And I was like, okay, these guys seem to be super professional. I mean, they have PhDs in climatology and oceanography. How am I going to be on par with them, especially when we do not even have time to connect, even after the summer school, because that the classes were for almost 6 hours, and then we had a daily work to go to. And so what we started doing is, we quickly would connect for say 10-15 minutes. We would brainstorm on our ideas, and we made sure each of us would put some efforts a day before that to say, okay, this is what we're going to be talking about the meeting, this is where you need help, this is where probably we need inputs from the team collaboratively. And that's how we got things done. And I was surprised by the final presentation. I was like, hey, we actually did it. And had I not been in this, I would have never gotten a chance to actually work with people who are in that space. Just because I would have probably said, hey, you know what, these are from the different time zones. It's in any way not going to work out. But right now that ideation has just gone from my head. I just looked at them like, okay, we just need to work together, and we just got things done. So that is why you need to care, because for you to grow, first of all, you are a part of the community, you need to work with people together. Second, for you to grow technically or to have your diverse portfolio, you need to engage with people from diverse backgrounds, and it can all not, and you always cannot find them around you. Right. That is why it is very important.
Yeah, but you bring up a really critical point, right? On the other side of the pandemic, remote work is here to stay. Yeah. In some percentage, which means there now needs to be intentionality on, well, how am I going to do this when, like you said, I can't just walk over to somebody where, excuse me, physical spaces give you an opportunity to also bond with others. It looks like now we have to make extra effort to create that bond virtually. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes even more important. And I think it's getting projects done is you really need to understand your team members in every aspect, right? Yeah, I think that's a fantastic reason. Another thing I was reading in gaming, in the world of gaming, for example, right? Developers needing to understand the audience, because gaming is a very hot field. There's all around the world globally, people are, there's more gamers. Mm-hmm. How will you design and develop if you don't understand your audience? And the best thing to do it is to understand it with your colleagues, right? Because you say, oh, I know that. So accessibility, right? Different genders, different cultures, different geographies. We're more connected than ever. It's so easy to figure out. Of course, you can go do your research. Well, why would you go do research when you can talk to a colleague and go, hey, how would you think about this? Right? Yeah. They could be part of your testing pool. So yeah. I think the outcomes definitely are critical to projects, right? So the second thing is around community and collaboration, right? Mm-hmm. When you're trying to solve a common human challenge, and I'm sure everybody's aware of this, right? Climate change, sustainability, like it's facing all of us. Yep. So what does that look like? Like, what could they do to sort of understand the human race more broadly? Like, what would you recommend? What have you seen as a practice?
What I would say is it's just make time and space to talk with empathy. For instance, if you are just if you're happening to meet a colleague, if you happen to be in the same region or whatever, if you're gathering, be it for a conference or it can anything, you do not even have to know the other person. Just have casual conversations, bring in your culture of food, your heritage, talk about it, and that is what makes you empathize with the other individual. It always doesn't have to associate with, hey, you know what, this is the programming language I use, this is the kind of complexity that I'm facing. You do not always have to have conversations in that space. Take it outside. because that is when you try, you know about people, that is when the concept of you know, okay, this is what, if I were to do this, probably would this address this section of audience, right? And yeah, and I really like the accessibility aspect that you were just talking about, right? I mean, I happen to have one of my colleagues mentioning one of the apps, that a person with disability, as a person with disability, she was finding it very hard to use, right? And this is what a developer, this is one thing the developer community can think of. Okay, when I'm developing the front end, I just don't need to think about, okay, am I able to click this button? If I click this button, what happens? But they also need to think about, as a person with disability, for instance, will that make it easier for them, or is it just going to make it hard for them? And you will not know it unless and until you actually converse with them, right? So that's exactly why, just make time to talk with empathy, and you will have all your answers.
So I 100% agree with that. I think the challenge we also have is a lot of folks that go into this field are introvert by nature, right? So they're not natural empaths, and that's not their fault. That's not what they're trying to be, but it's just this natural, space that they're in. So I think they're the ones who don't. I mean, yeah, they're developer conferences. There's a lot of things going on, right? But I think there are also smaller communities where they might be more comfortable in smaller spaces.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's not just all about work and tech, although that's what excites them, right?
Yeah.
What's the latest programming language, right? Which tools have you used?
Yeah.
But I think we're also missing that connection.
Yeah.
And if you're not comfortable going to these big conferences, these big events, find smaller communities near you, because you do need the human. We're social animals.
Yeah.
I think humans need one another, especially the other side of the pandemic, or whatever this looks like. So I think that is going to be more important. We have to get more people out and in person, right? And like you said, developing those bonds, understanding different people, right? It doesn't have to be awkward. So as people speak out, like a lot of people are in the receiving end, right? Especially the developer community, because they prefer spending their time actually doing work.
Yeah.
It's a little bit harder. So why are we asking, developers to talk about diversity inclusion? Like it's also a big buzzword, which I think turns a lot of people off. They're like, I don't even know what that means to me. When you look at developers.
Yep.
Why should they use their voice? I mean, they're in a position of and they may not realize this, but they're in a position of huge influence, right? Some statistics, from a hiring standpoint, there are 97 million jobs that will be available in the AI and the emerging tech field by 2025. Now, that's great news for developers, but it's both good news and bad news. It's also because the pressure on the existing tiny set of folks in the world that do coding, it's going to be huge.
Yep.
So using their voice to bring more people in, what do you think about that?
I mean, it's a straight right of fact, right? I mean, it's the right thing to do, because your career growth is going to be directly proportional to that. You really should be thinking about how you can bring in more people, mentor them, get involved in the communities, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because you are ultimately going to get affected with it. I mean, a lot of hiring process today, they do have this aspect of behavioral testing, right? And you are already part of it, so it's important, the kind of hiring practices that you have, and also the statistics that you shared. It's all pointing to one thing: you need to you are part of the community, so you need to use your voice as an influencer, and elevate your career.
Yeah. So I was reading a recent report that CEOs of companies, very large companies, are now being hired based on their social and emotional intelligence skills. And what that means is that's going to affect the hiring practices.
Mhm.
And that's going to also, figure out from everybody in all ranks, up and down the chain, different functions. And I think it's going to hit the technology teams too, because I don't think companies can afford to not have a diverse workforce.
Yep.
Just all, not just a nice to have, but I sometimes feel, I feel empathy for developers, especially men,
Mhm.
right? And we know that there's, a lot more men in the field, and, in the Western
Mhm.
world, a lot more white men. I've worked with them. I love working with them because, you get this different perspective.
Yeah.
But I think being able to use your voice to bring more people in. And I always say, for men to win, women don't have to lose. And I think this applies in the developer community. And I think the narrative around inclusion and diversity has gotten a little twisted, because if you say, for example, for women, oh, women want this, we're women here too. But I say, we can't, it's not about, for women to win, men have to lose. We have to sort of come together as an entire human race to do this, because all these problems are for us to solve, right? We're going to be inheriting a lot of the problems. So I think the ask I would make, right, and I would love to hear what you think about it, is to, get involved. It's not just about you. Yes, it's about you. Of course, you want to grow your career.
Yeah.
But you also want to bring more people in, because it does affect your project outcomes, as we discussed.
Yep.
It also is going to be less pressure on you to
Mhm.
deliver, because, you're already working, 50, 60, 70 hours a week,
Yeah.
which is not sustainable, right? As human beings, your mental health is at stake. And really, obviously, it's the right thing to do, but it's more than just the right thing, right? What do you think? What's the call to action? What would you tell our development community?
Well, I'll definitely agree with you. I mean, one more point that I'll probably add is, the more you encourage other individuals, you talk to them, you share your journey of your association for the kind of motivation that your work brings, the kind of involvement that you do, you're ultimately going to be inspiring others, and you stand out to become a leader in that space. And that's and for me, that's like the highest level of career growth, wherein people are looking at you, people are looking at listening to your stories, trying to draw inspiration from you, and that gives you a chance to know what's happening around. And it might be, you might just be a tech developer Greek, you know what, I'm not bothered about all of this, all I want to do is sit and code, right?
Yeah.
Fine. But how do you engage? If you want to engage yourself with like-minded individuals, you need to find those like-minded individuals, and you're not going to just find it just sitting and coding, right? You have to engage with your community. So that's the number one aspect, of course. And the second thing I would say is, for most of the developers, probably being technically strong might always have been the baseline, but probably having the business acumen and the kind of and understanding the technology that would impact others, that would impact people around you, the whole world. That is what makes these startups or the kind of projects that you do interesting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the more you do, the better ideas that you get, and the better you get involved, and the better you involve people around you. So that's for me the whole story. That's how the whole story evolves for me.
Yeah, I think you're right. Context is important,
Yeah.
understanding the problem statement rather than just saying, tell me a requirement on line, 3C of a document, which drives me crazy. I said the context is really important.
Yeah.
Divya, this has been an amazing conversation. If anybody wants to reach you, what's the best way that they can reach you?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll definitely, I'm quite active over there. Of course, and you can also, my LinkedIn also has my email included. So yeah, looking forward.
All right,
Thank you
fantastic.
so much, Jyoti. I mean, this
Absolutely.
has been a wonderful conversation.
It has, yeah, definitely. And if folks, if you want to reach me, I'm on LinkedIn as well. Jyoti Balani, JOTI BALANI. Divya, you're DIVIYA. And hopefully we can see that on here too. Velaniki, right?
Yep. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining us. Hope this has been insightful and provided some inspiration on why you really should be part of your developer communities and get out there, use your voice. It matters. It really, really does matter. All right, take care. Until next time.